I made sure that we tapped into the best because we just can't talk the details of the trial all the time. The trial definitely is full of great stuff. Make sure you follow all of those who are connecting. If you see someone commenting, please make sure that you follow them. A lot of people are still trying to increase the numbers on their account. So when you see them, it's like walking past them and giving them a little, hey, I see you when you're walking in the mall. So make sure that you tap, follow, connect with whoever you see sitting in the room. I appreciate that. Make sure that you share out the live if you will. Today is going to be great. I am going to give you the best that I can. First, let's begin with the little work chronicles. Have you ever had pretext HR activity happen? And the pretext HR activity is always when someone, either in the year of or the next year after, they're always going to make sure that they are getting rid of somebody. So they tend to have this, little nasty little thing happen to the person on a constant basis. Here is a crazy moment that happened about 3 years ago. And I'm at the engineering firm at the time. I'm no longer at the law firm in Denver, and I was at an engineering firm, still doing the same position that I do wherever it is that I show, right? And one of the so-called manager, she was really like an acting temporary manager when the main manager was not on site. She goes, you know what, I'm going to be in Florida. I have some things that I'm going to take care of. When you come in today, just go ahead and leave early after you do everything that you do, kind of arrive like 6 a.m. and maybe leave like around 12 or 1. But she said, also, because of the overtime that you did last week, I want you to go ahead today and just enter your time in as if you're going to be there until 5 o'clock. So I just do everything instructed to do by this person whom the main manager had left in charge. So I leave early, of course, who would not, right? So I take off in the middle of the afternoon, and she, I'm driving on the highway, Austin, Texas, and she calls me and she's like, you know what? You stole some time today. And I'm going, girl, what are you talking about? And she's like, you stole some time because I told you that, you left at, you were supposed to leave at 1 o'clock and clock out at 1 o'clock, but your thing says 5 o'clock. And I'm like, girl, if you don't stop playing in my face, Yvonne, you told me to do that. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never told you this and that. She was on a 3-way call trying to cut up and act up, and she did several little weird incidents like that just to kind of cause trouble, and it worked for the manager, and I ended up moving on. I made up an excuse of travel, which I did. I took a trip to Germany and, made that my PTO to go to Germany, and I take this little thing to Germany, and I took off, and I definitely never came back. So, just when you see stuff like that starting to happen on the job or in a group of people, do know that coming forward, they probably are about to get rid of you. All right, thanks everybody. Welcome into the live. Let's get started on the topic. I wanted to talk to you guys first about this beef going on, Gene Dill and Suge Knight. Someone said, no one cares what happened to you. Rita, okay, I understand. I know what happens. A lot of times you guys come in the comments and you get out those moments that you need to take into therapy where your mom didn't listen to you. No one ever talked to you. You were a bite me mom kid and no one ever liked you. And now you come in my comments and try to get it all out. Girl, I'm going to pray for you. Hold on just a second. All right, muting that account as our prayer. Everybody let the church say amen, block. All right, there you go. All right. She's going to be delivered, highly favored. Y'all trust and believe that God has something for her. Speaking of God, Gene Dill, you guys, let's get into it. Gene Dill was chatting again a few hours ago on the art of dialogue, and he is responding to Suge Knight calling his name. So Suge Knight has something to say, so Gene Dill decided that he would respond. So he's talking regarding... He begins the conversation on Art of Dialogue in this little clip that I saw. He's talking about Cece's testimony. For those who do not know, we're talking about Capricorn clock when we say Cece. Later on today, we are going to say BB, and that is when we're talking about the one who's testifying today, the fashion designer's testimony, friend of Cassie, 33-year-old. That's BB, and of course it's Brianna. Don't know really want to mess up her last name. But first, let's talk Gene Dill. So he's chatting on the Art of Dialogue regarding Capricorn Clark's testimony about Suge Knight. And He says in his talk on the art of dialogue, Gene Deal says the prosecution is worried about Suge Knight. He also addresses the fact that Suge brought him into this beef, okay? So Suge brought up Gene Deal's name, so Gene Deal responds and says, look, I'm not going to, this is quotes that I'm going to put out. He says, I'm not going to battle Suge. He says Suge Knight is in a bad place. Suge Knight had cars. He said Suge Knight had houses. Suge Knight had private jets flying all over the world. He says that Suge Knight had everything in the palm of his hands. And then Gene Deal says now, after having all of that and living his best life, Gene Deal concludes that Suge is in a really bad place right now. I would have to agree. He says that Suge is getting false information, however, and this beef that he and Suge have going on in these last hours, he says that Suge should not be locked up. This is how he feels. He says that the video that happened that we all know years ago that shows someone came up to Suge with the pew pew pew. Gene Deal feels that the California law should have protected Suge Knight. He says that the running over activity and that they gave the charge to Suge, but it should have been to the person that was chasing Suge Knight. That's what Gene Deal says. He says Suge Knight didn't get the proper justice pertaining that. And then he also goes on to say that God is always punishing Suge. Now, this is when Gene Deal kind of goes into a really weird rant, but he, it would seem weird to some and, makes sense to others. And it's all about where you stand on this conversation when it comes to bad boy. All right. So Gene Deal says this. He says, God is always punishing Suge Knight. He says Suge Knight is someone that has gotten his punishment right away. Gene Deal says that it was different for Puff Daddy, though. Gene Deal says there's no punishment for Puff Daddy. Diddy has never had, Puff, he says, has never had punishment right away. And Gene Deal also adds that Suge was always being punished by God. This is a rant that he did on Art of Dialogue yesterday, for those who are just now coming in. So Gene Deal says that Suge was always being punished by God immediately. He's seen over the years that every time something would happen to Suge Knight, Gene Deal says that he witnessed it happen immediately to Suge Knight, but nothing would ever happen to Puff. Gene Deal says that he heard Puff say this one day. He says that this is when he believes that, Gene Deal calls Diddy a demon. And he said that the demon called this thing into play. And this is what he says, that how the demon summoned up what would happen. And then Gene Deal quotes. He says, and I'm going to quote, he says, I don't care. He says that Puff said, I don't care if Pac or Biggie unalive, but Suge has to go to jail. And then Gene Deal says, wow, those words from Puff, those were a self-fulfilling prophecy from Diddy. He says that when he said that, we all saw as, a people across the world, he says that we saw Pac I, then we saw Biggie I, right? And then we saw Suge go to jail. So he says that, Gene Deal is kind of saying that, kind of like the Deliverance movie, right? That he's basically saying that Diddy is the type of person that can say one thing and then it'll just happen to people. So, may forevermore Puff never have anything to say about Coach Dee Shields, because he sounds pretty powerful, right? But he then also says that for Puff, Gene Deal says that Puff, God doesn't punish him right away. Gene Deal mentions that, Puff Daddy, Diddy was never punished for City College, Gene Deal says. He says that Diddy was never punished for the DC children incident. He says all other stuff, that happened to Diddy. He says the Shine and the J-Lo. He says he's getting his all right now, though. In one sitting, he feels that God is going to do this thing to Diddy, in one sitting, although he says to Suge, they're kind of having like a biblical prophecy kind of thing happen in this beef that they have going on. He says, look, I'm pleading to you, Suge Knight. This is what he says to Suge Knight. He says, brother, you're wrong. I didn't know, and he's responding to what Suge Knight had to say this week in regard to Gene Deal. So Gene Deal goes, brother, you're wrong. I didn't know about Reggie Wright. It's a man in Detroit. He said he gave me a call. And he says, I'm not going to say his name, even though he does say his name later. He says he was a podcaster too. He said he was a really big deal. And he said, that the podcaster called him and said, hey, Big Gene, I want to introduce you to Reggie Wright. He said that Reggie said something about Biggie, and I overheard it on that phone call, Gene Deal says. He says that he overheard Reggie Wright say that they should have unalived that fat MFer, That's what Gene Deal says he heard Reggie Ray say. He said, dude name, and I'm talking about y'all, I'm just going to say the name, and then he says Rel. He says before that, he didn't know Reggie from a can of paint. He was only Puff security. He said, you know, Suge Knight, look, you are wrong, okay? The info that you're being fed, he said, them bad boys are lying to you, brother. That's what he says to Suge Knight. And he wants his message to get out to Suge Knight. He says, one man to the next, Suge, I have respect for you. This is what Gene Deal says a few hours ago. I have respect for you on the East Coast, West Coast thing. We were going to shut that down. Do you remember that? He tells Suge, do you remember? We were going to shut it down. Everyone was going to show up. He then reminds Suge Knight that it was Puff, he claims, that refused to show up. And then he says, look, you and Pac, I saw you. Remember that time behind the House of Blues? And then he says that you were in a car, remember? He says, well, look, I was in the car with Puff that day. He says, do you remember when Puff rolled up the window, I'm thinking he meant rolled down the window and said, yo, Suge, we got any problems? And that you said back to him, no, Puff, I don't know any problems. And then he said, look, man, you're putting my name out there and you keep saying that it was me, Gene Deal, but look, bro, it was actually Paul. That's what Gene Deal says. He says, bro, it was Paul, bro. And on a security tip, it wasn't me. I had my own security contract with Puff, point blank. He says, so look, I just want you to get your information right. So we're going to hold and just be real still because we know that Suge Knight is definitely going to make that collect call and respond somewhere on some platform to Gene Deal. So that's the tea on that for all who missed it. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Different. Thank you. I appreciate it. You're going to come by as soon as you're done over there. I appreciate that. No problem. Thank you so much for stopping in also. Okay. Oops. Sorry, you guys. All right. Let me get back to it. All right. So let's go into, you know, I don't know what you guys have to say about that. What do you think about that Gene Deal? I mean, it's just always something that's causing the East to go against the West. Like they just can't stop. I don't know when it's going to stop. When everybody gets to the nursing home, technically, just an FYI on nursing homes, I don't know if you've heard the new tea, they are shutting down nursing homes. Nursing homes are going to turn into what they call a 20-day rehab. So you will be able to put your elderly person in a 20-day rehab. And then after that, you have to take them back. So I'm guessing that these East Coast, West Coast brothers, I hope they find love instead of all this beef, because who's going to take care of you? Y'all going to be beefing in the rehab and getting kicked out and on the street and still beefing. I don't know how long this West Coast, East Coast thing will go. All right, but on to the witnesses, and let's just talk a little trial today, okay? In discussion earlier about witness 2, Jane Doe was talked about prior to the prosecution getting started today with the defense and prior to court today. And they talked about Jane Doe, and the prosecution is sharing that they really, with this direct examination of Jane Doe that's coming up, witness 2, they're going to need all the way through till Monday. They need all this time with Jane Doe when she comes to the stand. And it's going to take up until Monday of next week is what they said to the judge, right? And they're requesting this. The prosecution wants the public screens to be turned off, okay? They want to avoid what happened last week with Mia and that whole identity leak, that thing that went down, right? They say that Jane is expected to be shown some, when they do the direct examination of Jane, they are going to be showing some explicit videos during the direct exam. Okay, so there is a request for a paralegal to sit with Sean P. Diddy Combs, and they want that to happen during this kind of direct examination going on with Jane. They're asking that a paralegal sit, and you'll find out in a minute why that's important. So they want a paralegal to sit with Sean P. Diddy Combs, just that it's being done in the way that it needs to be done. So Para, have your moment, whichever Para is going to be doing that. That is going to be huge history for a paralegal moment in this high profile case, right? So a paralegal will sit with Sean P. Diddy Combs. Now, the prosecution is saying this. They're adamant that the public or the attorney's screens are not going to be able to see the videos, right? And Agnifilo tells the judge, look, Mr. Combs is prevented from seeing the Jane Doe's text messages, but I am asking for time to meet with my client in a place that has a desk with no separation. And I'm asking this request to do so from the courthouse. Can we do it in the evening when Diddy can be put in and he can be brought in as well? And then there was something brought up about the marshals and their schedules kind of thing. And then he begins to cite the Sixth Amendment is a key issue in why he is requesting this for Sean P. Diddy Combs, right? So of course there's resistance from the prosecution about him being able to do so, but they're kind of going back and forth. Now let me remind you, the Sixth Amendment guarantees the rights of criminal defendants, okay? Including the right to a public trial without unnecessary delay, the right to a lawyer, the right to an impartial jury, but most mainly in this point, the right to know. Diddy has the right to know who his accusers are and the nature of the charges and the evidence against him. Until that changes, that is an amendment. That is a right that he has. He is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and he has that Sixth Amendment right. So he does have the right to know who is, because if not, any Joe Blow can come up and say, yeah, I knew Puff, and then Puff came over, and Puff said this, and then Puff did that. I mean, everybody wants $1. Half of y'all have no jobs, right? So everybody will get out there and try to do it at this point. So they do have to kind of put some guidelines in place and give this man some amendment rights to say, look, his Sixth Amendment, he needs to know who these accusers are so he can tell his team, that person, I've never met them before in my life. They're just coming and saying something, trying to do a money grab, whatever it is that he's able to deliver so that the defense team can then go and say, look, let's do some research. Who is this person? That kind of thing, right? But let's talk about the morning testimony. Anybody disagree with the Sixth Amendment right for Sean P. Diddy Combs? If so, this is your moment. Say something in the comments so that I could take a look at what you have to say. Thank you for tapping that screen the way that you guys have done so. I highly appreciate that. Let me also go here. I'm sorry. I am like all over the place. I don't know how I'm able. Okay. All right. Close that out. All right, I had to go through your comments. What a great feature. They have this new feature where the comments can become bigger. And yeah, great, thanks. Need that, don't have to put on the reader. All right, let's get to it because I don't have that much time. I have to get out of here early today. All right, so the morning testimony, Frank P. I asked you guys, what do you feel about in regard to Puff? Do you feel like the Sixth Amendment right should be guaranteed to him? Or do you feel like he's going to do something with that? I don't know. Also, make sure that you go and take a look at my video that I put on the timeline this morning where Ciroc video was posted by somebody over the last 72 hours. And they not only posted the moment with Ciroc, they put some creepy music with it. And I show you the creepy music at the end. And Sean P. Diddy Combs is speaking. I've seen that original debut with Ciroc when he first... Anybody remember that when Ciroc merged with Diddy and made the decision that they would like him to be the face of Ciroc and, that kind of thing? Well, just go take a look at that video on my timeline if you haven't had a chance to do so. I think a few hundred of you have been able to do so already. All right, so morning testimony. Frank Piazza, forensic video expert, is on the stand, just going over the videos with expert details. That's pretty common in this high-profile type case. And any case, it's pretty common to bring an expert in, right? And if you have the money, then you can pay the right ones to make your point. Prosecution is just going to be continuing to go in against the defense. Yes, this is a valid video. This is real. It has not been doctored. Defense will continue to try to insert things like maybe it's been doctored just to kind of put a little doubt in the jury's mind, right? Questioned by the prosecution and defense, Frank Piazza, forensic video expert, he's on the stand this morning just speaking to the validity of the hotel videos and others, just doing some detail on the pixelation. He's testifying that he does not see in parts of the hotel video. I points that he doesn't see pixelation and things like that, right? I do believe there was a point when he was asked, is that file corrupted? And Piazza, there was a point when he said, they were talking to him about the ghost figure in the mirror. It's shown to him. Tina Garrigo's, defense for Sean P. Diddy Combs crosses Piazza testimony with questions regarding the video also, right? And then the prosecution, the United States Smizer, asked, so they are 5 minutes off in as far as the video clips and things that they looked at. And Piazza testifies, look, my notes tell me that there was a 5 minute and 55-second difference and another offset of 5 seconds or so. Prosecution also says, does the video accurately predict what happened? And the expert witness, Frank Piazza, answers yes. He is then dismissed at some point. Just to let you know, Sean P. Diddy Combs and what he's doing at this moment, no, I'm not about to talk about what he wore. But what he is doing at this moment, they say, reports from the courtroom say that he was watching the screen intensely during that entire, back and forth and cross and direct exam of the expert witness, Frank Piazza. Now, again, if you missed it yesterday, that whole whoa moment with the 100K offer about trying to cover up this video, that was a drop indeed in testimony. They also mentioned coming up, we're going to talk about Brianna. They talk about how he kept an eye on BB. When Brianna Bongolan, I don't want to say her name wrong, she's a fashion designer. She's a 33-year-old. She's a fashion designer, longtime friend of Cassandra Ventura, star witness Cassie. And she's been still friends with her, right? She's still friends with her. She comes in, and here's how she comes to the stand. Info on her. He basically watched her when she came in to walk to the stand. Not something common being reported back that he does, but he does take a look at Brianna, maybe because of what she's accusing him of. He's familiar with these accusations prior to this trial, right? So she's testifying under immunity. For those who do not know, Brianna, the fashion designer, friend of Cassie, is testifying under immunity. There are reasons why. Now, she's a user, okay? She's a seller. Brianna the plug. I don't know if y'all know, but Brianna the plug. No, but anyway, she's a seller and a user, and she has a habit, and this has been talked about not only in her claim and open ongoing case that she's filing against Sean P. Diddy Combs. It's also talked about during, kind of the delivery of who she is to the stand, right? She wanted to invoke her Fifth Amendment right on self-incrimination, right? And mainly because in this thing, the rugs that she claims to have sold to Cassie, she says that she would constantly do, get these, rugs for Cassie. And she also claims that at some point she did also do so for Diddy as well. They talk about the X and the Coca-Cola and the cat and the G. They say that she testifies that Puff introduced her to using G, right? And then they kind of went to a break when I kind of fell off from anything else about the court morning activity, where she says, we've seen Brianna, or we've seen a woman similar to this story that she told, that testified today. There was a woman in a TMZ documentary that told a very similar story. So I'm thinking that TMZ documentary on Tubi is also highlighting the same person, except that was just like a documentary that I seen and I don't really remember verbatim her story. She's also featured in that HBO documentary also, if I remember correctly. So we kind of expected the people from those major documentaries that are, kind of legally vetted kind of documentaries, we're expecting them to come to the stand, right? So there's no shock to see someone from the documentaries of recent to be now on the stand, right? So she claims that, in her testimony, that Diddy said to her, "I'm the devil and I can sakalilia you," right? And I'm guessing that is when he said that he was sakalilia her over the balcony. And that's something that she's testifying that happened to her, right? I would say unalive, but some people, y'all just be y'all get all up in your feelings that we say unalive, but we can't say anything else without getting in trouble on here. So I'm thinking Sakilia. Tell me if y'all like Sakilia. If y'all like Sakilia, if not, I'm gonna say skills, Killy ZZ, I don't know. We'll say something to try to throw off the algorithm. But anyway, Cassie did bring up in her testimony the balcony, chilling out on the balcony, on the other side of the balcony that doesn't have any floor kind of moment. She did bring that up in her testimony, and she in her lawsuit in 2023, and they kind of went over that when she was witness on the stand, right? And just so you know, Brianna Bongolan, the fashion designer, I don't know how to say her last name correctly, has a lawsuit also regarding this incident that she is claiming happened to her. So there's a lot of, I got a text from, Diddy kind of testimonies that are going on all the time. But then we also have with the March, raid of the homes in Miami and California, that this thing said that they had so many cell phones that they picked up. So you can say that someone sent the text, and I had an assumption that that person that sent the text was Diddy, but no one's really laying out any proof that they can say that actually came from him. You could say, I think it was him, and you may even have the name saved as Diddy, but you don't know who may have been acting as him and putting out requests, and who, everybody knows in these kind of high entertainment streets, they usually have a Judas, right? So the Judas could have been the one sending it out and acting like it was Diddy. He may have someone corrupt in his staff, and they have been the reason why he is here today. There's all kind of angles that can happen in a case like this. All right, does anybody have any questions? Because like I said, this is a short break for me, so I can't go any longer in my personal day. I'm gonna have to turn off YouTube and all the updates on the trial. Again, I wish this was one of those, like, I'm just gonna let my age talk, but I just remember being able, okay, all of my age is going to talk, but I remember being able to record and save the OJ trial, and after getting off work, being able to go and take a look at, and seeing everything that was happening, and I don't know, just different things, Rodney King, some people talk about, the things that we've paid attention to when it comes to trials, not just being a paralegal and interested in a lot of different trials that they do suggest that we take a look at, so that we can learn things over the host of a career, right? But just personally being really tuned into the trials over the years, maybe my age will show up again with this, but the Rodney King trial, followed it very intently with constant discussions in large crowds with people in regard to that before we were doing these lives. Talking, this is something that anyone that knows me personally knows happened, right? So the Rodney King trial followed that very closely in complete detail. The O.J. Simpson trial followed that very closely in complete detail. The Michael Jackson trials followed those very closely in complete detail. The R. Kelly followed those very closely in complete detail. The Bill Cosby, and now the Sean P. Diddy Combs, and just, maybe not so much the Young Thug and the NBA Youngboy, but, there are just times when I am really tuned in, because I do follow other trials. And, so when I see a Jodi Arias, or when I see a Scott Peterson, when I see different other trials happen and things happen for Menendez boys and things like that, that doesn't happen in these trials, it kind of puts my little radar up, kind of like Chris Chrisley, is that his name? When he came out and did his little beauty presser the day after he was released from his pardon. What was that, just a few days ago? And he talked about a judicial system that is just, he saw personally with his own eyes that he would see people of color not being given the same opportunities to reform, to redeem themselves, to be given an opportunity for early out, right? And that's another reason why we're following that Larry Hoover kind of thing closely also. So it could happen. So what's the question? I'm sorry, I missed. Is someone having a question about something? I missed it. Maud told the person use ChatGPT. Okay, I missed the question. I don't know. You guys might want to repeat it for me. And you want to know what the Sixth Amendment is. Since you're in the UK, what I'm going to do is just verbatim pull for you the way that Copilot says it. That way you don't kind of record the screen and misquote it and try to say that I said anything other than the way that it's written. I can also pull it up from our Google Scholar that we use in the paralegal role, different places like that. But sure, let me pull it up for you. So basically, the Sixth Amendment guarantees the rights of a criminal defendant, including the right to a public trial without unnecessary delay, the right to a lawyer, the right to an impartial jury, and the right to know who your accusers are and the nature of the charges and evidence against you. All right, hopefully if that helps, let me know. All right, and he does. He definitely has that right per witness. He does have that right. The key part of that, to know who his accusers are. This is a man, no matter what the public has already decided, this is a man that is innocent until proven guilty in this high profile case. So until he is proven other than, he does have rights that do apply to him. And even when, if in case, in the instance of the verdict not going in favor of the defense, he still will have rights, and he still has a higher court to take it to undo everything that happens in this court. He has an opportunity to go one step higher if he so chooses to, and if there are funds available to do so, right? All right, Gene, Dill, and Suge, I told you guys about that. Talked about the witness testimonies as of up to this morning. Coming back tomorrow, and we'll have an additional oops, I did his homework for him. Look at me. I tend to do that sometimes. Thanks, Mod. I appreciate it. Tap the screen, follow the host. I appreciate everyone that follows. 11 new people followed in this, 3,000 tuned in. You guys rock in ways that you have no idea. Highly appreciate. Full recap, link in bio, YouTube. We'll have the complete recap with a few edits available probably in a few hours after. Let's see, when am I free? Maybe about 7 p.m. tonight. So, running through in your evening hours, I should have time to edit and load up too. All right. Anybody have any questions? Did you miss anything that you want to hear? I could possibly go through and read that quickly through the notes. Gene Deal, Suge Knight, you have anything about that? Witness testimonies, any questions about that? Did you miss anything? But if not, please do go to YT. If you missed yesterday's talk, it's already loaded up to YouTube, link in bio. All right. Thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate you guys for tuning in each time. I have some videos posted from yesterday. Hope you enjoy. Like to get a little downtime in. Good. Thank you, Karma. I appreciate that. Caught up, and thank you for coming by, giving me the time of day, listening to me. Highly appreciate it, and for tapping the screen, supporting and following. You guys rock. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.